Here we are, back with Deep Metal, the review that was in serious danger of becoming Half-Life 3. Last time the Maximals had to build themselves a base to protect the Ark from the Predacons in case they try to murder Optimus Prime again. This week,
slag.
They're apparently still working on that. Rhinox is peeved that there's been no word from Cybertron, suggesting the bosses either don't know or don't care. But either way, they're kind of boned.
None of us are quite who we were when we began this war.
That definitely applies to you. How many bodies have you gone through, Optimus? Between that and traveling through time, I believe you can apply for dual citizenship as a Gallifreyan. Meanwhile, someone is very, very cross, and it's not Megatron for once. Someone out in deep space is violating High Council orders in some way because he is trying to track down Protoform X, aka Rampage. This winds up taking him through the vortex and back in time. So good for him. Any day that includes unexpected time travel typically involves some kind of excitement. Meanwhile, Inferno is commanding a small attack upon the Maximal base. So small that it consists of only himself and Rampage, and he is unimpressed. However, Rampage does sense the approach of our visitor, who arrives the way most people react when they do. Cheetor spots this and calls it in, hopefully being the answer that they've just been talking about. Well, they're so distracted, they don't even have time for Inferno's attack. Yeah, in the end, they just drop a rock on him and clock out early. As for the ship, Cheetor watches it crash into the sea, sinking before he can do anything about it, and leaving him a sitting duck for Rampage to take out of the equation. And speaking of local animals, we need to adjust our new friend over for this environment. And so after a quick scan, he's able to have the ability to turn into a stingray. I know if you watched this when you were a kid, he probably didn't seem like much of a threat, but since Steve Irwin, obviously, that assessment has clearly changed. He starts scanning around. He even launches a little fish probe to find Rampage, but finds Cheetor instead. So while he sees to a good guy, Megatron's pissed at the bad guys, Inferno's predictable failure, and Rampage going AWOL. And so Waspinator gets cleanup duty.
Inferno blow up Waspinator must salvage. Waspinator blow up nobody's salvage.
The struggles of the comic relief warrior are often ignored. And it's better that way. Megatron puts Quick Strike in charge of finding Rampage because he meets two of the following essential criteria for such an important mission. He's here, and he's not doing anything. Coincidentally, that also applies to Cheetor once he comes around. Depth Charge introduces himself, but before anything else can happen, he detects Rampage in the area and so takes off, leaving the poor cat behind. Still, it might have been better that way.
Playmate.
Yeah, I wouldn't want a piece of that action. No, that's all you, Depth Charge. They banter a bit like old foes are wont to do, and they start mixing up real good. In the water and up in the air. Yeah, Depth Charge can fly. Yeah, that's another way that Waspinator got screwed. He gets tiny little gossamer wings, and creatures that are meant to be either on land or underwater wind up getting jets. Can you imagine the indignity of that? It's like spending your entire life training to be the winner of the 400 meters, only to arrive at the Olympics and find everybody else gets a bicycle. After being badly damaged, Depth Charge crashes and Rampage gets impaled on a spike. Then Optimus shows up for Cheetor. Master of timing, that one. Rampage, being immortal, shrugs off being impaled through the chest and gets back to the important job of kicking Depth Charge's ass. Only Depth Charge is not the kind of Maximal you're used to. He's ready to just put Rampage down for keeps if he can. In fact, when he finally has the big serial killer on the ropes, he disregards his repair orders to go in and make sure the job is done. This is important to establish, because that way when Quick Strike takes Depth Charge down a moment later, it does not break suspension of disbelief that he might actually win in a fight. All that plus...
Uh-oh.
Everybody's getting a rocket today. It's like there was a fire sale or something. Rampage slips away in the confusion, so Optimus brings Cheetor and Depth Charge back so that he can share the backstory with everybody. The reason that those two get along like a brick of sodium tossed into a lake is that Depth Charge was in charge of security on a colony that Rampage attacked, and was the lone survivor. So he hunted Rampage down for 4 years until finally catching him, bringing him back, and asking for the equivalent of capital punishment. Seems that with Protoform X vanishing without a trace, Depth Charge decided to come find him again, and he seems to be in a rather bad mood after losing him.
Go chase a mouse.
Oh, seems rays have more than one way to sting you. Depth Charge blames them for failing to deal with Protoform X, so he's going to leave them to whatever it is they're so busy with while he takes care of the actual problem once and for all. The others come to the conclusion that this guy is an asshole. And when he spots the Ark and learns the truth, yeah, he still doesn't care. Stopping Protoform X is all that matters.
This is not alone. He's a Predacon now under Megatron's control. There are 6 of them.
I've got to hand it to you, Primal. When you screw up, you do it big time.
Ow. Nice day to you too, dick.
I don't know if it was Larry DiTillo who came up with the idea for Depth Charge. He wrote this episode. But it was nevertheless an inspired idea to reintroduce a rogue element into the Maximal ranks. Now that Dinobot is gone. Except instead of being motivated by honor, it's by justice that borders on revenge. Megatron frequently has to deal with treacherous X-Factors in his ranks, so it balances things a bit to give the good guys an unreliable X-Factor. The episode is also very effective at introducing Depth Charge as a worthy adversary to the big bad Rampage, showing that Depth Charge needs to cut corners and take serious risks in order to try to even the odds when taking on such a, impossible enemy. Keeping things fresh going into the 3rd season is a great idea. It could easily have gotten into a rut of just the same old thing. We've got a new scenario. We've got different kinds of characters being added in here. This is a great start to the season.